Good morning, viewers. Welcome to Frankly Speaking with Vibhuti Jha. Today, my original plan, and that's the plan which it will be, to talk about consciousness, conscience, and spirituality. What exactly is it? If we talk about countries specific, we know that Chinese are Kung Fu masters. What is India's identity? India's identity lies in its spirituality, in its consciousness, in Sanatan Dharma, in a spiritual way of life. So to discuss that, I have brought along with me two very valuable guests. I will introduce them in a minute. But prior to that, we must know and we must acknowledge one of the wonderful things that happened last Tuesday when Indian Air Force, Government of India, India as a country took care of the terrorists who were creating chaos in India. We had the real unfortunate tragedy of the Pulwama massacre of 44 CRPF soldiers. The country was anxious, was keen, was frustrated that what kind of people are we that we are hit repeatedly by our Napak friend across the border, but we don't ever respond. 26/11 didn't bring a response from the government. Parliament attack didn't bring a response. So what kind of people are we? And I am told by my friends from many places, what's wrong with you Hindus? You are hit so hard, but you never respond. Now that's a very critical part of the thing, and the country was very, very anxious. People demanded an action, and India did move into action, destroyed 3 of the terrorist camps, and returned successfully without any damage occurred. That was a pretty profound moment. It is called about bringing a mood shift in the country. There was a greater awareness of pride that we can do something. If somebody takes us for granted, we can hit back. And that was very, very powerful. I personally was very delighted that we eventually responded to the call or the challenge thrust upon us by the enemy. That said, I have today told you already that I'm going to talk about consciousness, spirituality, and conscience. To discuss this, I have great pleasure in welcoming Dr. Bhakti Nishkama Shanta.
Namaste.
Welcome to the program.
Namaste.
And thank you for agreeing to come today to discuss
my pleasure
this issue. In addition, I have also the pleasure of welcoming
Namaste.
Dr. Bhakti Vijnana Muni.
Namaste.
Thank you very much for joining us today. This is truly an amazing moment. It is an amazing moment because both these gentlemen will tell you their story. They are IIT engineers. They have done their PhD. They are engineers of very high quality, but they drifted into spirituality. So tell me, Dr. Bhakti, how did you drift into this entire topic, entire dimension of spirituality by wearing clothes that you are wearing? And what is your message to the viewers that it can impact them to have abandoned your life and joined here?
Well, I would like to first, thank you for this opportunity. And, as your question, asks me to reveal how I came to this line, I was doing my PhD at IIT Kharagpur. And during my PhD, I was, witnessing a very unique event that IIT Kharagpur organized about aging and dying. We are all going towards old age and death. So, according to modern science, life is nothing but a chance combination of atoms and molecules. If that is the case, can we kill the old peoples who are not useful to the society? Previously, they may be army men, they may be professors, but now they become old. So, if we can give them some injection and euthanasia and they will die, can we do that? Or life has more value than mere accumulation of atoms and molecules. Life is beyond atoms and molecules. So that idea, understanding was discussed, and my Guru Maharaj came, Dr. T.D. Singh, and he explained that life is beyond atoms and molecules. So I have understood that science is not studying scientists. So that is the point that
Okay.
turned the.
And what about you, Bhakti Vigyaji, Dr. Bhakti Vigyaji?
My story is somewhat similar. That when I was
Were you contemporaries in the IIT or?
No, at that time I was in IIT Kanpur.
Okay.
I was doing my MTech at that time,
Okay.
and I saw that in this world people are not wanting to help each other for few numbers, but I saw there was devotees there, and they are singing and dancing, distributing Bhagavad Gita, and I was very attracted. And one of my friends said, "Come, see how nice they are dancing and how nice they are feeling," and I felt, oh, he's expressing some kind of a happiness. Then I got interested gradually, and I met my spiritual master somewhat later, and then gradually I was drawn into this path.
How long have you been involved with this?
Since 1998.
98. And what about you?
Since 2005.
2005. So you have several years of advantage over him in terms of the choice of the path that you have taken. Right? I mean, advantage not as a positive or a negative, but you have many more years that you have gone. So here is the one question in terms of contemporary situation, which is very important. Everything that we do, unless and until we are able to imbibe it somatically, it doesn't work. So, it's one of the very simple examples is that whatever we know and whatever we come to learn, if we do not imbibe it in our body, then we can't do it. That's one of the things I felt in my study of consciousness and spirituality, that becomes easy to talk, very difficult to practice. And that's what, in the material world, in Kalki Yuga that you are living, we end up saying, spiritualism is only for talks and for when you want to feel good. So tell me one thing, from your perspective, how would you say that this message of consciousness, conscientious behavior, and the spiritual element of the life, the message can be taken to the common man who can understand and imbibe it as a practice?
Yeah, actually most of the people somehow and other, they don't get the education about their own self. So education about the inner self is very, very important, which is missing. So if we educate the people that they are not just mere bodies, they are soul. And when you understand there is nothing like American soul, Indian soul, or Pakistani soul, or any soul, then there will be an universal brotherhood. And the soul is not getting its identity by itself. There is a super soul, and we are all servants of that supreme. That means we are all from the same family. If that understanding comes, then there will be a larger scale of harmony, peace, all these things will come into picture. But how many people are getting soul education? We are getting only educations like the animals do, immediate biological need about eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. So we are not getting any real education. What is the food for the soul? What benefit we can do for the soul? Anyway, this body is going to finish today or tomorrow.
So what is important here to figure out is that you talked about education of the soul, education part of it. Our country is a land of spirituality. We have talked about consciousness for ever since. We are Sanatan Dharmis. We have followed the natural laws. We respect nature. Despite that, what happened that our education system itself doesn't bear that fruit? Why is it that in India itself, we are so poor in the education of soul, as Dr. Bhakti Muni said? How would we talk about that? Where did we fail? Because why I'm asking this question is that as much as a student of spirituality and learning, we all know that in this God-created universe or evolutionary earth, we all evolved. Our nose, our lips, all perform identical function. Whether you are white, black, brown, yellow, whatever, right? A child takes 9 months to be born. This is universal. The question is, where is it that we as Indians, we as Hindus, failed to incorporate this education of the soul, as we call it, Atma?
That is very clearly explained in Bhagavad Gita. Yadyad acharati shreshthas tat evatur janah. Whatever the men in society who are considered to be the leaders, they preach and they practice, common man simply follow them. So somewhere we feel when the India became free, and in those years, this part of education was not like very integral part of education. Maybe we were doing it in the homes or our families, but we neglected this, our ancient Indian treasures. Now let us ask our people, who are our leaders, whether, I mean, spiritual leaders, we don't even know them. Like if you ask a Christian, they will easily tell, but in India, very few people know that what is Veda Vyasa's contribution, what is the contribution of the 4 principal sampradayas that appeared in Kali Yuga, and what is the contribution of Gauranga Mahaprabhu. We are not even knowing these things. So this is our problem.
So when we say it is a problem, the question again arises, is the word called responsibility. How much are we ourselves responsible for that? Why did we let it happen? So sometimes, not sometimes, most of the time, when we talk about these issues, people would say, general impression is, oh, we have been ruled for thousands of years by Islam and British, and that's how it has made us kuntit. Our thinking has been impaired. My question is, as a responsibility part, is why did we let it happen? Because at the time, 1,000 years ago, when these invasions began to happen and the foreigners began to attack India, remember one thing, it's very important to bear in mind that we were the golden bird. 29% of the world economy, trade, we had it. We grew and developed without the English language. The question arises, how and what happened that we allowed ourselves to be decimated so much that thousands and thousands of years before 1,000 years ago, the entire thing went to dust. Nalanda University was burned down. We were annihilated. We fought local wars and we lost all of them, despite amazing bravery of our soldiers and kings at that time. So I want to study that part of it, which is where I want your thoughts, since you have, what is important is that you are very educated, you are PhDs, you are engineers, you have IIT pedigree, and I want to tap into that thinking of yours. Where did we miss out and what do we need to do now so that the knowledge of the soul, education of the soul, can be the precursor to the world that we are trying to build?
A question to me?
Yes,
again?
it's not a question, it's a dialogue, it's a conversation. Okay. So your thoughts on that?
So you look at the very ancient records. Even the Greeks mentioned about India. Socrates, you have mentions about India. Alexander the Great, he came to India and took a valuable lesson about this spiritual knowledge of India. But in the modern times, even the British, sometimes they respected our spiritual culture. But when after the independence, when there was this attraction for the Western education, and the intelligent people of our country were leaving our villages, they were leaving our cities and going to the Western countries, America and other countries. So they completely neglected this section of our knowledge. So we require very intelligent people, thoughtful people who can think about these higher topics in the association of the real saints. Especially Mahaprabhu, Gauranga Mahaprabhu, he is the leader of our Sampradaya. He said that in this age, the most intelligent people will follow, that is Veda Vyasa actually mentioned, the most intelligent people will follow the path given by Gauranga Mahaprabhu. So if the society can take up this message, then again this will be revived. The spiritual knowledge will be revived.
Will be revived.
Actually.
And the point which is important here is, it is in the context, because if you apply the 80-20 rule, 80-20 principle, 20% of people who are spiritual, but 80% of the people are dependent on that. So that message has to reach the nooks and corners for a real change to happen.
Correct.
And to that end, you are engineers, you must set up the process of that. Engineering is all about establishing the processes for things to happen. Things don't happen in a vacuum, so they happen in a process. So giving a deep dive into that, how would you say that we must establish the process whereby we are able to establish the supremacy of soul once again?
Actually, I would like to say the modern education, especially, it got degraded when we accepted the concept of abiogenesis and the theory of Darwinian kind of evolution, when we are being taught that life came from some matter was already existing, which is presumed, and somehow that matter become complex and first life formed, and following the process of natural selection, the random mutation and natural selection, the whole biodiversity manifested. That is the cause of degradation in the society, because we look at people in a materialistic vision. So to again revive the spiritual culture, we have to address the concept of life, what it is. Like for example, we have started this annual conference series, Science and Scientist. Scientists can explain science, but can science explain the scientist? This is very interesting.
You are having this conference
at Rutgers University.
And when is that happening?
In the month of June 15 and 16.
June 15th and 16th.
In the Rutgers University campus, we are holding this, and there are many prominent biologists and also the neuroscientists and medical doctors. They will be gathering to discuss this point: what is life? The theme of this year's event is what is life, and we want to emphasize, if the scientists, they can change this idea that we are mere chance combination atoms and molecules. We can see in a natural phenomena there are unintelligent processes which produces some stuff, like rivers or even the sea beach. The waves are coming and sand is organized in a pattern that you can say that, oh, maybe created by somebody, but sometimes randomly also they happen. But again the same waves come and they damage those patterns. That is the unintelligent process. But the intelligent processes, like for example a camera or a television set, it is coming by a designer. And there are intentional objects like myself or an organism like a bacteria.
That's
they have
a
the
very
purpose.
valid point. We will continue that conversation soon after the break, but the important part is that human life West has been materialistic, but they have really brought about innovations and discoveries. Now, innovation and discoveries vis-a-vis religion has a very different role to play, because religion thrives on the ignorance and fear of people, in my opinion. But natural law is of a totally different kind. So whenever science and technology evolves, it removes the darkness that is brought about. We will talk about this topic soon after this short break. Welcome back. We will continue our dialogue on a very important aspect which kind of divides the world today. Did God create us, or are we part of evolution? As science and technology spreads further, this pen is a part of a design. Somebody designed the pen. Who designed me? We don't know that. That is the important part to figure out. So I attended one of the wonderful exhibitions on human body in Manhattan here. When I went through the entire process of the exhibition, I wrote in the visitor's book, "To hell with intelligent design or evolution. Let's love our body, let's worship our body as a respectful machine or a soul, because life evolves in a particular way." So how do we address the challenge of common man? Because the common man is perpetually, in a struggle. We go to God, at the same time we go to the doctor as well. Because we don't cure our cancer by praying to God, but we seek His blessings. But the doctor cures my cancer. How do we explain that challenge the common man faces?
We have to go and see the evidence first. In all of Vedic teachings, especially Gauranga Mahaprabhu, first he speaks about Praman Tattva. Praman means the proof, and Pramay means what are the objects of proof. So there are many questions how human beings came. So this is one question, but and then we have to see what are the proofs. So first thing is that, which is also Louis Pasteur's observation, that life comes from life. We always see that egg comes from a chicken, and to have the chicken we need the egg. And if we try to make the idea more simple than that, it is impossible. Like, can we mix carbon, nitrogen, hydrogen, oxygen, these elements, and electricity and magnetism, whatever, and we do something and get one cell? So nobody has done that. Nobody has proven abiogenesis. But to claim that there was abiogenesis takes science to a unknown territory. So therefore, this is the first problem. There is no evidence that life first came from any chemical actions. Secondly, to understand the Vedic conception, it is called the concept of Purna. You know the sloka, Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate. It means whole comes from the whole. So this, which means our idea is holistic development. So we don't say the hands and the legs and the atoms and molecules somehow come together and one organism was formed. No, there must be some original life. And from that original life, all life is coming by a particular process which is not evolution. And even intelligent design is, their good thing is that they are saying something about God. So we appreciate that.
Now this is a very important point you suggested here. I'll share with you my experience. When I learned transcendental meditation from Maharishi Mahesh Guruji's disciples and attended part of the whole process, there was a very important element in that. The element was that consciousness was key and meditation brings you closer to your own growth of self, because mind is the one which needs to be controlled. Now the question is, how do we control mind? Mind and matter, these are all subject matters of great debate. At one point in time, matter achieved supremacy, and then mind came back to attain in the spiritual sense. But the important part was that when in the United States, the reason why transcendental meditation and meditation as a word got accepted was because Maharishi Mahesh Yogi allowed the experiment of meditation and its impact on humans to be investigated from a scientific process. So Department of Health, United States Department of Health, conducted full-fledged scientific investigation of the impact of meditation on human life. Reduction in stress, reduction in blood pressure, lowering of stress. If these three things happen, everybody's life becomes better. And what is important here is that if you are able to achieve this equilibrium, you always enhance yourself in an elevated equilibrium. Because now you are able to discern things better because your mind is at rest. That's what brought such a massive surge of acceptance of meditation in the United States. That's the point which I want you to talk about, is that when you bring about the study of soul, now everybody knows Atma, Hur, soul, these are all words describing the same entity. What would you say one must study about the study of soul?
Actually, there was a Nobel Prize winner, George Wald, and he was always saying that it is the matter which is the primary and from which mind evolved somehow. Somehow life came from non-life, the matter. But our director, now present serving director, Sripad Bhakti Madhav Puri Maharaj, who is also a PhD from University of Georgia Tech, and he met him, and once he told him, Professor Wald, why are you always saying that life came from matter? Why not you consider the opposite, that matter came from life? And then he thought about it. Actually, if you see, you are living, your nail is growing, your hair is growing, opposite is happening. Life is producing a small tiny seed, is producing a gigantic tree. Then he wrote back to our director, actually what you were saying is correct. It is the matter which came from life, not the opposite. And then he became a great, transformed his life from a materialist to a spiritualist. And you can see the history, how George Wald's life evolved after this conversation. So the point is that when we try to focus our studies on life, life is not coming by the parts designed outside and they get some assembled together. Rather, a cell divides, one cell becomes another cell, and those cells, like from the zygote, they form into brain, hand, blood, everything. They come as a whole concept. We don't see a machine is coming like that, as from a screw, the whole laptop is coming. We don't see like that. The whole system of biological, the intentional object, the process is completely different, and we have to understand it more seriously, more scientifically, and we are open for evidence, as my colleague was saying, that the biogenesis is a well-established empirical fact that life comes from life, and life must be the primary, not the matter.
That's brilliant. Now, what I want to say is here also is that sometime, please come back again, because I want to have a conversation in which our viewers share this element, the study of the soul. You know, it is like ancient wisdom to contemporary challenges, because humans always face challenges of growth and end. It's a part of an evolution. Tomorrow we all will be one day older, whether we like it or not, and we can't reverse it. Yes. So the point here is that the ancient wisdom and contemporary challenges. We know that in our scriptures, they say in Rig Veda, it says that individual mind is connected with universal mind. And there are universal principles. Universal principles are so fantastic that it runs across the world in every human being. Every parent loves their child. Every child is a sense of pride. We always wish the best for our children. We want success, we want happiness, we want peace. War is never a solution, but it has to be done. As the saying goes, in a materialistic saying, Western saying goes, that the human mind is so seeking of conflict. All that matters is whether you are supplying bandages or bullets. That's the point which I'm trying to come to. When would we, as Hindus, as Sanatan Dharmis, will succeed in bringing that concept about, let's relate it with contemporary challenge of climate change. It's all about disrespect of nature. If we had succeeded in bringing about the thought process that respecting nature and accepting nature, not tolerating anybody else, but accepting nature, we would not destroy nature and then pretend that we are taking care of it.
The whole problem is our angle of vision. Since past so many years, maybe say 100 to 150 years, 250 years, maybe 200 years, the general focus of the Western education has been to look at the universe as a mechanical clock. But our Vedic, our Indian, our ancient conception is we look at nature as a personality. Like we say the mother Ganges, we say the mother earth. So we never, and when we talk about personalities, we know that they are not sum of parts. They're coming by a higher developmental process, which we are, from our understanding of this worldly conception, we cannot understand. So therefore, first thing is that we must educate ourselves in the association of true teachers of this ancient system of knowledge about what is the meaning of organism, what is the meaning of life, where I stand, what is this total reality, and what is my relation. So Gita says three things: knowledge of the soul, Atma Gyan, then knowledge of Bhagavan, and then the most secret, the most deepest of that is the relation of love and service of the living entity to the supreme reality. So even this knowledge of soul is so mysterious for these ordinary people. They can't understand what is this soul. Most of the people are thinking, I am the body. When the body finishes, nothing remains. But if that is so, if body is only chemicals, how do you explain consciousness? How does it arise? Can any quantum theorist come and say, how does consciousness arise? Nobody is able to explain that. They are just taking it for granted. But that is not the scientific process. Scientific process must say where things begin, how the process acts, and what is the result. So the Vedic understanding is that consciousness is not the result of chemical actions. Rather, it is the externalization of spirit. So this knowledge, this spiritual knowledge, absolute truth, has been lost, and this has to be given back to these intelligent people of the world, and then they can understand what kind of steps we should take for environmental protection, not only caring for human beings, but for all living beings of the earth and universe.
That is very important, the depth of relationship of humans and nature. That's remarkably important to understand, because everything in nature exists for a purpose. And in my personal belief, I believe in a very interesting way that everybody and everything is food for something or somebody at some point in time. And that's the phrase that I have come up with myself. And this happened primarily because of a political contemporary dialogue in which I was told by somebody that we bury our dead, they take 6 feet of land. You people burn them off. What kind of people are you that you burn your loved ones? And I said to him that, well, forget about my process of cremation. It's actually dust to dust. But in your process of, you also go dust to dust, but you feed your dead departed's body to insects and earthworms. They feed on the dead bodies. So tell me, how do you define your love is anyway better than mine? We'll come back and discuss more on this and other issues right after this short break. Welcome back. Continuing in our conversation of spirituality, consciousness, and conscience, one of the things which I mentioned earlier on, that there is a purpose in life. There is a famous book, How to Seek Purpose in Life and What You Want to Become. So I would ask you, Dr. Bhakti Nishkamji, is that how would you reach out to the common man who is struggling for bread and butter, for a daily livelihood of looking after their children, making ends meet? How do you define what his purpose in life is? I mean, taking into account that George Bernard Shaw famously said that the whole world is a stage and we are all actors in it, whether you are an extra or a main, doesn't matter, roles keep changing. Yesterday I was a son, today I'm a father, tomorrow I'll be gone. These are all life cycle. How does one define his purpose? A common man, not you and I, but common man who is really struggling for life.
Yes, I started with the point, the education of the soul. So we can have a scientific understanding of the concept of soul. The modern science, they have laws of mechanics. For example, Newtonian law of mechanics. If you throw a stone, you can predict where the stone will fall. But if you release a bird, you cannot predict where the bird will go, because bird has its own purpose. A stone does not have its own purpose, but a bird will fly according to its own purpose, where it wants to go. So here we can clearly see the discrimination between inanimate and animate objects. So all animated objects, they have their own purpose. If you drop a bacterium in a fluid column, it will not follow Brownian motion, but an inert particle will follow that. So when you are saying there are purposes to everything, but modern science teaches everything is purposeless, atoms and molecules. So this is the conflicting thing, that modern society is being educated as if we have to live a life which is driven by chance, combinations of atoms and molecules and unintelligent, unguided forces. So we have to bring them to a point of scientific understanding of life. Schrödinger famously written a book called What is Life, and he discussed there is negentropy. Life exhibits a organizing principle. If you see, your body is always organized, it is not disintegrating until you die. The moment you die, your body gets disintegrated. So why this is so? So if you have your purpose, other individual has its own purpose, then how these conflicting purposes, which is like leading to war or conflicts that you are seeing, how to harmonize this? That's why in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Sarva dharman paritejya mamekam saranam brajo. There are so many finite individuals, but they are not the sole owner of the reality. There is a center to the reality is an organic whole, and try to search that center and serve the center, the common purpose. That's what is the teaching of our ancient Vedantic philosophy.
That's brilliant. That's a great way to present the whole thing. But the important part here is that the value systems that our Sanatana Dharma has, did we fail the principles? Where did we as humans, as Hindus, as Indians, fail the practices of Sanatana Dharma? Because it's all about nature, it's about natural laws, it is about eternal principles. What is it, what must we do now to bring these teachings of Bhagavad Gita, Sanatana Dharma, to in front of the people? Because what I notice here is very important to know. In my interactions with mainstream US Americans, they love the ideas because science, the discoveries and science have broken the barriers that existed prior to them making life easier for us. So the question then remains is that how do we really How do we really make a breakthrough?
Well, the question of values is an important one, but it is not the ultimate one. So, like the good old moral values of Christ in the Western world, and in India also the good moral values taught by Buddha and later on by other saints also, they had their impact. But the soul, it has a natural attraction for the absolute. If that is not part of our education, I mean in all aspects of life, it is not that you go to only temple and there you are worshipping in front of the deity of God and that's what is devotion. No, in all aspects of life, it can be integrated and harmonized. So a farmer, a warrior, a rocket engineer, a mathematician, a physicist, all of their approaches can be, if they are linked with this higher understanding of the spiritual, then the point of attraction, which is the name of the God in our religion, is called Krishna. Krishna means the all attractor. Krish means attraction. So naturally he is attracting everybody. Only thing is we have some pollution in our heart, like Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya, these 6 enemies of devotional service. So the first point is to clean the heart. Cleaning the heart means now we have our senses. Through the senses we are interacting with the world. So when we are not surrendered, that time these senses are leading us to many directions and we are unhappy. We can never become happy in this process. But if those senses can be directed to the service of the absolute under the guidance of the great sages, like in the tradition of Veda Vyas and Mahaprabhu, so then gradually the thinking of the living being becomes transcendental and he becomes free from the anxieties or the material dualities, and his whole being becomes completely engaged in the service of the absolute truth as it is being revealed.
Given the nature of the world, that we live in an imperfect world, there is a desert, there is the snow, there is forests, that's the God-given world that we live in. The question arises that how do we deal with these imperfections? Because none of us are equal, we are all different. Now there comes a bigger challenge. Now you said earlier on that you have to evolve. You
have to find a teacher.
Find a teacher. Now modern world will have the word called coach, but guru tradition has existed in our way of life.
There are different understanding.
Yeah, there's a different understanding for the word guru. The question, the thought that comes to my mind is that I feel, I've begun to believe now, that the moment the world accepts only certain principles of Sanatana Dharma, the life will change. The question is, do we accept that? More often than not, people use the phrase tolerance, religious tolerance. I always talk about acceptance and respect as to who you are.
Actually,
that's what is important. And acceptance and respect is key to life and living. Again, the education becomes important. So your thoughts on how do we give the message out? That's important for us because we know by virtue of our education and knowledge that what we do and the way we live is a truly free world that you talked about just now. To achieve true freedom, our way of life is actually truly free democratic principle. There are no mandates, there are no restrictions, there are no impositions.
So actually, if you see Vedanta Sutra, first verse starts with Athata Brahma Jigyasa. So the preliminary understanding of that sloka is, now you got the human form of life, you should inquire about your true self, who is the owner of this whole reality that is in front of you. All the scientists using their science, they cannot produce a blade of grass, but we are seeing so much grass is coming, even the grains are coming, even so many varieties of animals are coming, none of them are produced in the laboratory. So the Athata Brahma Jigyasa means to inquire about these things, just not get busy with immediate fulfillment of your biological needs, eating, sleeping, mating and defending. Anyway, animals are easily doing that. But in West we know that man is a rational animal. So use your rationality to go dive deep into reality. That's the point our education is not encouraging. So if somehow we encourage to dive deep into reality to the students, not just go for immediate things that you are observing, try to go deep into things, then we will find a different kind of understanding, different kind of knowledge. And the point of guru that you are talking about, actually you as a being finite, you can never understand infinite. Mathematics also will say that if you keep on adding the finite numbers, you will never get infinite. So many finite people gathering so much of their imperfect knowledge system that we are seeing in the world, that will never produce the realities, real what you can say, the knowledge that the ontological understanding of the whole. So the knowledge has to be revealed. The meeting point of infinite and finite, that is guru. So guru is the via media by which you can communicate with the absolute and his plans, and you can execute, you can follow that plan. So that whole point is misunderstood. Now the concept of teacher is completely changed. It's in the professional system of dealings. Right. But guru is not like that. Guru means who already established in a loving relation with the absolute, and he will teach you that connection. Religion means realign your what you can say, lost connection with the absolute. That is religion. But modern day religion is to a kind of other kind of extended self. I am this religion, that religion. It's not like that.
Yeah.
Religion means that you have lost your connection with the absolute, and you have to realign that. You have to know the will of the absolute and again follow the will of the absolute.
Correct. And that's very well said. And the point other point that comes out is that majority of people are struggling for daily life. Whether you call Maslow's theory of hierarchy, to achieve the highest value, your basic needs have to be met. Majority of the people, according to the pyramid, are at the lower or the mid level. It's very difficult to evolve when you are satisfied. Your search for acquisition of material disappears. Then you achieve an elevated equilibrium. The question here is that I get a feeling sometimes that our way of life is constantly attacked by Christianity and Islam. We are under constant attack, whether it is about Murti Puja, or that fact that we worship too many gods, or that their God is the only way to do the right thing. How do we address that challenge as a common man? Because this evolves from a point when my son asked me this question, and many young boys and girls ask this question, that people talk about Christianity and Islam all the time, but nobody talks about Hinduism. How do we take that message forward?
We cannot be ignorant of our concepts. That means our revealed religion's concepts. We have to be first educated ourselves. Then we will be easily able to have a dialogue and bring them also to an understanding of what our truths are. Mm-hmm. So the problem is that we are listening about the Islamic ideas, Christian ideas, but we have practically very little conception of what India's real teachings are. So for example, all these questions like idol worship. So our murtis, they are not idols. The definition of idol means creation of the finite, creation of the mind. But the deity of the Lord is called Archa Vigraha in Sanskrit. Archa Vigraha means he appears by the call of a devotee of the Lord who is in love with him. And so therefore it is not proper to call it idol, because it is not the creation of his mind. So therefore there are practical things are there, but we begin with like the basic principles. First question is, what is soul? Then we have when we talk about God, there are three aspects: Brahma, Paramatma, Bhagavan. Brahma means the all accommodating aspect. Paramatma means who is localized in the heart of every atom and every living being. And Bhagavan means that aspect, that means that Supreme Lord who is the object of bhajan or loving service. So even in Christianity we say the first principle is, the first commandment is love of God. So in our religion also that is there, the word prema is there. Bhagavad Gita is a ladder which takes you from the world of suffering, this world of karma, which brings reactions, to the world of prema, love. In the prema there are no material reactions, and it is ever increasing and giving satisfaction.
That is very important. The other part which comes to my mind very quickly, we have just about 30 seconds to for you to say this. How did India or Hindus got afflicted with the disease or cancer of caste distinctions? 30 seconds.
Actually, caste system is not our system. Actually, it is a division of level. Like you have a collector and there is a peon. You cannot eliminate that. You cannot say that collector and peon are same. They are different according to their guna and karma, the kind of nature they have and the kind of activity they are doing. We never divided the people by birth. Everybody by birth they are Sudra. Janma jayate Sudra. But when they are trained, either they can be Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Brahmana, based on their guna and karma. We never divided by birth, the system that we see.
But somehow this entire thing has gotten deep into our system,
Yes.
whereby the Hindu society is getting broken up, in various forms. Now the time is short, but there is another part which is very important before we close, and that is nature. Nature offers us all the wealth that is there. If we ignore nature, we do it at our own peril. Just bear in mind, it's in nature that we find gold and diamond. It's in nature that we find all the chemicals and materials. It's in nature that we find wheat and rice. It's in nature that you get fish and goat. It's in this nature, this is so bountiful. We have to respect nature. We cannot, as human beings, talk about disrespect for nature the way we are doing it right now and then say, let's save nature. That's not going to happen. And unless and until we are serious about it, we have to respect nature, and that's part of Sanatan Dharma, eternal principles. Thank you, Bhakti Sahab. Both of you are Bhaktis.
Thank you very much.
And it is such a pleasure to have you today.
Thank you very much.
And viewers, thank you for being with us. Have a great week. Salute to the Indian forces to have taught Pakistan some good lessons.